Okay. So good evening. As you know, in 2016, we did a townwide reassessment after 42 plus years of not having done a reassessment. That was a massive undertaking where we had to update all the property inventories, sales, and make sure that all the information for each and every property, including exempted properties and village-owned, town-owned, county and state-owned properties, were accurate. And the only way to place an accurate valuation on a property is to make sure that you have the accurate data. So back then we requested interior inspections. We accomplished over 60% rate of interior inspections, and we analyzed the sales, created a model, and using computer-aided mass appraisals technology, we place a value on each and every property. We reviewed the values by street, and of course went through this same process, which was very invasive to some people, but on the other hand, we brought the assessment roll up to date, and we are able to levy taxes more accurately. Since then, in order to maintain the roll, every year we did sales ratio analysis where we adjusted the neighborhood based on a ratio that we found to be applicable based on sales during a specific period of time as prescribed by law. As an agreement with the state of New York and following best recommended practices, we agreed to do a cyclical reassessment process in which on the 5th year, we would go ahead and do a complete reappraisal, which basically means, again, doing a new computer-aided mass appraisal model and driving a value to each and every property based on this model. And this is the 5th year, and that's what we're doing, and that's why we call it a reappraisal instead of a reassessment. Of course, we had most of the data was accurate, but we had to verify that data. We sent requests to every property owner to verify our information to make sure that we had the correct inventory on every property. Many did, some didn't, but we continued on utilizing all the technology we have at hand, such as sales, building department, GIS, and pictometry in order to update the information. So this year, this process basically places a value on each and every property. The ratio increases, decreases, or changes or no changes that we did in the last 4 years, basically says that this same ratio, whether it's a 2% increase or decrease or no change, apply to every property equally. And as you know, real estate, the real estate market is a very local phenomenon, and some properties increase or decrease in values differently based on what's happening in the marketplace. So on the 5th year, such a year such as this model basically brings all that up to date. And as a result, when we say that some neighborhood increase or decrease by 5%, that doesn't mean that everybody had the same percentage. Some people may have seen a drop. Some people may have seen a 15, 20% increase. Some people may have seen a 15, 20% decline. But the important thing is that every property is valued individually based on comparable sales similar to the subject. So that's where we are at now. We were supposed to have sent out these preliminary change of assessment notices last month, but due to the emergency, we delayed it, and we had to act because there has been no change in the prescribed assessment calendar. And we have to basically follow the law, do our job, and continue with the process. As a reminder, the 2020 roll is utilized for the 2021 tax bills. As of now, there has been no change in the assessment calendar, and the filing of the tentative roll is scheduled for June 1st. As far as neighborhood adjustments, I did provide to the town board, and is posted on the website, each neighborhood and the average adjustment per neighborhood. Some neighborhoods went down, some neighborhoods didn't change, but many did go up. Neighborhoods that were affected by the new SALT, which is the tax laws that limited the deductibility of real estate taxes, the high-end neighborhoods, they went down because people are not buying those properties. However, most neighborhoods in Austin are very affordable compared to the rest of Westchester County, and they have very little inventory, and as a result, the market values for those affordable neighborhoods have been going up at incredible numbers. Even as we speak, for example, the rental market, it's crazy. There's hardly any available apartments in Austin to be had, because a lot of people are trying to move out of the city as we speak. And of course, as you know, a lot of the market in these suburban communities in Westchester, Rockland, most of Putnam and Nassau County, the market is a lot of people from the city moving to the suburbs to raise a family, etc. And as a result, the affordable homes have been increasing in value. Now, as far as to give you some statistics, the average residential increase townwide is 5%. The 1, 2, and 3 family average increase is 6%. And condo, which are valued differently than 1, 2, and 3 families, they're valued as if they were apartment rentals, they went up on average 5%. Commercial properties went up an average of 3%. Overall, townwide is a 5% increase, which means basically that if your increase is 5% or less, and the budgets were to remain the same, you should not see an increase in taxes. However, there are many factors that will, come into play. This is the preliminary numbers. When we file the tentative roll, we would have more specific numbers then, as far as the gain in taxable assessed value. But overall, the assessment roll for the town of Wesleyan, we are looking at an increase of about $200 million in increase in assessed value. So basically, to answer one of the questions that have been that has been posted or asked in the past few days, what will happen if this emergency situation kills the real estate market and everybody's values goes down? Of course, as soon as we complete this roll, finalize the roll in September, we will start working on next year's roll, analyzing sales in order to capture the market data and make the proper adjustments. So if the market was to drop in value, we would of course adjust the values next year to reflect the new market conditions. Now, another question that was asked is, what happens when everybody's market values drop? Basically, the assessment roll, or the pie by which we divvy up the levy, will decrease. So as a result, the tax rates would increase because there are less taxable assessed value to divvy up the tax burden. On the contrary, as we have experienced since the reassessment in 2016, every year we have had increases in taxable assessed value, not only because of market condition changes, which we call equity, but also because of physical changes, which is like new construction, additions, and as a result, many of the taxing jurisdictions have seen that the tax rates have not increased, or if they increase by very little. So if and when the market crashes and we have to lower the assessed value for most properties, then the effect will be to the contrary, meaning most likely we'll see an increase in the tax rate in order to maintain services, provided that the levy remains the same. As far as shifts, when it comes to commercial, residential, and the ratio of commercial residential to condo, it basically has remained the same. There is going to be some minor adjustments as we go through this process of informal reviews and agreements. But basically, they have remained the same because the condos went up 5%, 1, 2, and 3 families 6%, and commercial properties on average 3%. Another question that was asked, in the past, we always said, well, we would see a third of the properties will go down, a third will go up, and a third will remain the same. The preliminary statistic that we have been able to pull, because remember, this is not finalized, this is just the preliminary. We see that 67% of the properties remain between a minus 10% and a plus 10%, with 25% increasing from between 10% and 25%, and 5% decreasing, minus 10% to minus 25%. So that is the breakdown as we see it now. That if there are any changes after we finalize the roll, it would be minimal. We don't expect a big shift because of the changes related to the grievances or the informal reviews. Trying to think what other questions I can address as we go through this. So as prescribed the law, the valuation date for the roll is July 1st of the previous year. So for the 2020 roll, the valuation date is July 1st, 2019. So of course, these numbers do not reflect the current conditions in the marketplace, which is of course that not a lot of things are moving because of the emergency. However, there are still some closings going on because those deals were negotiated before, and there are listings coming into the marketplace. And while there is no physical showings of property, of course, utilizing technologies, realtors have been able to continue to do business. However, the public is not really into it, and the general sense is that the market is going to really take a hit if unless we reopen this economy soon. So it remains to be seen when you think that way about what is going on right now with this emergency. However, the reality is that a lot of people are looking to move into neighborhoods such as us, whether it be renters or single family properties, because that has always been the market. And there is, of course, now a strong desire from many people to live highly populated areas such as the city of New York. One of the questions is why are we seeing an average increase in 6%, and that is because of in 1, 2, and 3 family homes is because of the market. Again, the ratio adjustments that we did in the last 4 years was based on sales for that neighborhood. And while we apply those adjustments equally to all the properties within the neighborhoods, what we do this time when we do a new computer-aided mass appraisal is to place a value on each property, because typically, for example, a raised rent does not go up in or down in value at the same rate as an older 1920 home, or for example, a two-family. And of course, the rate of increases and desirability of neighborhoods changes every year depending as to what's happening in the marketplace. What we saw in the last few years, particularly more so this year, is that the small 2 and 3 family home became very desirable, and they went up in value tremendously. And neighborhoods such as Indian Village, people coming out of the city were paying ridiculous number for small capes with 2, 3 bedrooms, 15 to 1800 square foot homes. That neighborhood, for example, Indian Village, has seen an increase every year. I think every year. Basically, we are charged to measure the market and what the market reaction is to situations. We will be measuring the market reaction to the current emergency, and of course, that will be taken into consideration for next year. I'm trying to read some questions as we go along. Yes, again this year some properties in the estate areas saw a decrease again because of the effect of the deductibility of taxes. We saw some of that last year, but most of it is reflected this year. There were corrections on some of the high-end plan unit developments because of the tax situation. And on the other hand, we have seen other plan unit development that continue to be highly desirable, such as Hudson Watch, and the sale prices have been continuing to climb. As to address the condo market, as you know, condos are valued as if they were rental properties. And in Austin, overall, particularly in the village of Austin, there is not many apartments available to rent. The few new units that were built in the last few years have been absorbed into the market pretty rapidly. This emergency pandemic situation has made the market even more tight, meaning that there is less apartments available now than they were at the end of last year in the village of Austin. And in the town, of course, town outside and the village of Briarcliff Manor, there is not many apartments to begin with. Of course, there are units that are rented in some of the co-ops and condominium complexes, and we have seen an increase in the asking rent, a steady increase in the asking rent, and a continued demand. So the increase in the condo values and the apartment building values reflect that. And of course, a lot of the smaller homes in affordable neighborhoods saw a sizable increase. For example, in the neighborhood, the Hollow in the village, that area, and the south end of the village, the Sparta area, Revolutionary Road, you can see the sales. By the way, we have posted the sales in our website, and the sales are posted there, and you can see them, and you will see they're listed by street name, and you could see sales in your neighborhood, and you can get a sense when you see that a similar home to yours, what they are selling for in the last couple of years.
Fernando, while you're looking, so what
Yeah.
if there weren't any sales in your neighborhood? What happens then? Where do they go next? Where does Tyler go next?
If there are no sales in your neighborhood, you try to go to another neighborhood that has similar market conditions. One of the big determinants of a neighborhood is school district. Of course, we would never cross school district in order to find a comparable sale. Many of the neighborhoods, most of the neighborhoods had sales in order to come up with a model to drive values. Now, after this process is done and values are assigned to each property, we do a review by street and by neighborhood, and that was, the last few months in 2019, when people were calling in because they saw a strange car parked in front of the house looking. And that is the process. And basically what you're trying to do with the street by street review is to find what we call in an appraiser's jargon is outliers, meaning properties that do not conform to the neighborhood, or values that are obviously off. For example, you go into you look at a neighborhood which is mostly 1800 square foot Cape Cod, and then you have this one property, and these Cape Cod style homes are valued at 450, and then you have this one property that is valued at 700, and when you drive, you right away will make a determination there is something wrong here, or that explains it. Because you'll drive to it, and maybe they put a second floor and has converted this home into a colonial, which is now 3,800 square feet, and hence the value. Though that home is not typical for that area, but there are other similarly styled colonials with similar square footage in other neighborhoods that would be more comparable to that home. So that is the process. And of course, we review every property, every neighborhood. Not only do the Tyler staff review it, but my staff review it. Remember, and I'll remind everybody, while we hire Tyler technologists to do this process and provide the technology and the driving force, this is our role. We are responsible. This is not Tyler. This is the Town of Austin Assessor's Office. We review every property and we approve every value. So we don't just say, well, Tyler did it. No, we did it. So we were involved. We are involved in every step of the way, and we will continue to be involved. And we are the ones also that defend these values when we have to go to court or trial in some cases. So it's a process. It's time consuming, and we have deadlines to meet. And of course, the assessment calendar is prescribed by law. And until that law changes, we have to continue to do our job and meet the required dates.
Okay, so a couple more quick questions, and then I'm going to address the required dates question.
Okay.
Or issue. Somebody had asked the question about how you determine neighborhoods, because they didn't think that their neighborhood made any sense. So the neighborhood, half of the neighborhood was in an area that was walkable to the Star Road train station, and the other part where they lived wasn't walkable, so they felt like their value was shouldn't have been as high as something that was walkable to the train station. How is that? How are those neighborhoods, areas determined to be all
We,
in the same area?
we basically we didn't feel this year that we needed to make any changes to neighborhoods. In the last few years, we did move some properties from amongst neighborhoods. The neighborhood delineation process, you can find that document on the assessor's page on the town's website. But basically, is typically we would like to delineate a neighborhood where everybody has shared the same characteristics such as walkability, style, year built, etc. But that is not always the case. As you know, particularly in older neighborhoods, we have a mix of styles, a mix of condition and age. And many times, although a characteristic such as walkability is important, and it's a good determination of how fast and how much people would pay for a property, many times it's better to leave those few homes within that neighborhood, because we're not going to find the other neighborhoods are going to drive values that are even worse. So in those cases, that's what the process of review tries to find, those outliers where you may have a neighborhood where everybody is in a nice residential neighborhood, but you may have 5 houses on a busy road, and those 5 houses that are on a double yellow line, high traffic, busy road, we would then adjust their value to reflect that external obsolescence of high traffic. In some cases, some homes may be next to a business, or next to a noisy business, or next to a gas station. And of course, those are situations that we try to find and address them by making an adjustment to compensate for that.
Just to be clear, this part of the process is also what drives the tentative role that you eventually are going to file, which is these informal interviews with Tyler, correct? Yes. So that's part of getting it right, is having those. So if somebody says, well, this is crazy, I just bought my property a year ago and it's gone up 20%, and there's no way it's gone up 20%. And I know that because I have comparables of sales. So I'm going to go sit down and meet with Tyler, and I'm going to show them this, and then they might adjust that value down.
That is correct. So the process is this: the informal review. The idea is to provide the homeowners who best know their property an opportunity to discuss the value with an appraiser who's an expert, and for them to bring to our attention anything that we have missed. So let's say, for example, that same house that I was describing that is next to a gas station, maybe we missed that. And that house should not have the same value as the house behind it that is facing a nice residential quiet street. So through this informal process, Tyler will make a determination and make adjustments. And then we will send again, if there is a change in value, we will send a notice of determination by Tyler, and we will send another change of assessment notice, whether it's to increase the value or decrease the value. Most often, of course, is decreasing the value prior to the filing of the tentative roll, which is typically June 1st. So that is the process. And then after that, if the property owner is not satisfied, of course, they will always have the ability to seek administrative review by the Board of Assessment Review by filing a grievance, which is that RP 524 mentioned in the notice. And after that, if the Board of Assessment Review still does not meet their with their agreement, they can seek judicial review by filing a small claim with the courts or an Article 7 certiorari for commercial properties with the courts. I'm sorry, a small claim or a SCAR with the courts for residential owner-occupied properties and an Article 7 certiorari for commercial properties.
I'm going to ask this question, even though you already answered it. I'm going to ask it one more time.
Okay.
So we did a full reval in 2016. Every year we've basically tried to keep up to the best of our ability. Now we're back to doing another sort of full-blown reval. Why would we see 20% increases in some properties? Why would there be such a big swing in value for properties? They've been if we've just been sort of keeping up, it seems like there should only be a minor increase, not such a huge increase in any property.
It could be many factors. It could be inventory changes that were not captured because there was no inspection, or because we never had the improvement were there, or were recently legalized in some cases. It's the market, and it's a little bit of catching up because the adjustments that we did for prior years may not have been applicable to that property. So, for example, in some neighborhoods, we determined some years that the increase was 1 or 2%. But really what was driving those values were, for example, the old style home. And we applied those values to everybody. And not all the homes in that neighborhood are old style. And then when we do a more detailed analysis, as we did now, and when the model price value, which styles is one of the main conditions, we realized that, yeah, the old style homes were going up by 2% in that neighborhood, but the capes have been going up by 8% every year. So now we have all this catching up to do. And that's where you see that. In many instances, our recent sales, recent additions, and in many cases with recent sales, we discovered that, for example, the condition that we had was incorrect. We had the property as in average condition, meanwhile it was in excellent condition. And it could be a combination of all these factors. Again, and that's why when you do an appraisal for a finance transaction, such as a mortgage for a purchasing a home or a home equity loan, an appraiser does one appraisal report specific to that property, and comparable sales to that subject are used for that reason. What we do in interim years, as we call it, between reappraisals, is apply a factor equally to all the homes in the neighborhood, although not all the homes in the neighborhood went up or down at the same rate.
Okay. Got it. The other thing I wanted to talk about is one of the questions was, why would you do this now in the middle of this pandemic?
It's a very good question, and we're taking a lot of heat for it. And I understand, this situation makes people, desperate, especially those who are on the front lines, the healthcare workers and the emergency workers. They're going through a lot of stress. Anybody who has been affected directly, whether they have had the virus or have lost their jobs or their family has been sick, everybody's under a lot of stress. And of course, we're adding more stress by doing this. Unfortunately, what we do is prescribed by law. the assessment calendar is part of the law, and until that law changes, we cannot just, take action to try to help people out. We have to follow the law and do our jobs. Now, if the law changes, then of course we would follow the new law and act accordingly. But until that happens, we must continue. These notices were supposed to be out a month ago, in order to provide for a more relaxed, if I may say, informal review process, giving us time to investigate, inspect if we need to, before we file the tentative roll June 1st. But because of this situation, we delayed it, since nobody had an idea that this was going to go down as it has been. So we had to get going in order to meet the calendar, and that's why the notices went out last week. In retrospect, maybe we should have sent them out a month ago and dealt with it. However, we're trying to do the best we can by using technologies. We hope that many people avail themselves of this informal review. Of course, we are inundated with calls, and we are talking to everyone and answering emails and trying to also make adjustments accordingly.
So let me just say that after the notices were printed, and I don't know if it was exactly when they were in the mail or on their way to the mail, the governor issued an executive order which gave municipalities the ability to extend the day that we could file the tentative assessment roll by up to 30 days. And I believe that that's something that the board would probably look favorably upon, if that was something that your office can handle, which I'm confident you're going to say yes to that, Fernando.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that what we're going to do is offer to buy back that 1 month that we took away from waiting and seeing, and put it on the other end so that we can give people a little bit more leeway in scheduling those informal reviews with Tyler, and or speaking with your office, ensure that in fact the assessments are correct and that they match up with properties as they should. And so that would then mean that we push back our grievance day. So we would have we push back the the filing of the tentative assessment roll from June 1st to
June 30th.
To June 30th. Okay, from
Yes.
June 30th. And then we would push the grievance date to July 21st.
Correct. Yes.
And that would work for everybody.
That would work.
Okay.
We would still, we would, the Board of Assessment Review then has to process the grievances and render a decision and provides the information to us so that we can file the final roll by September 15th.
The executive order also did give you discretion to extend the filing of the final roll by 30 days.
Okay. I don't think we would need that, but if we do, we will certainly.
It's available to you as an option.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pull the board to make sure that everybody's on the same page, although I know you're all going to say yes. So I'll just go around to Councilwoman Shaw. Would you be in favor of extending those dates?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Feldman?
Yes.
Councilman Wiltshire?
Yes.
Councilman Meyer?
Yes.
So that's something that we have time to add to our next meeting. Our next regular meeting, we would adopt a resolution to extend those dates. And I think we can inform the public prior to that, even as long as we're all on the same page. Councilor O'Donnell, is there anything you wanted to add to that before I just ask our board members if they have any questions for For Fernando?
No, I think the executive order pretty clearly allowed for these relief, contemplating circumstances similar to what we're seeing in Ossining. And so if the town board is willing to avail itself to that, it's worthwhile, it appears. And you know, given the timing of everything and the fact that Fernando was coming tonight, it seemed a little premature to put something on the agenda, but if the board is in agreement, which it appears that the board is, then I think you can certainly begin operating under that understanding of the June 30th tentative roll until the board's next meeting where you can formally adopt a resolution.
Okay.
Okay, great. Hopefully the sooner we get the word out, which will basically extend the time that we have available for informal reviews. And let me point out that we have schedules available for 2.5 weeks, which is from now until May 12th, which can be extended as required by Tyler. We already have close to 200 appointments scheduled. And of course, many people have discussed their assessment with my assistant, Al Closey, and myself as well. And after that, of course, they will have the option to proceed with an administrative review by the Board of Assessment Review by filing a grievance, in this case, by July 21st.
Okay. Wonderful. Then the other question I forgot to ask you before was that this information is available in PDF form, and I think that I'd asked the question about could it be available in Excel, and you said that it's easier and searchable in PDF. So I just want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we have posted on the town's website the 2020 reappraisal project. Not only the sales, residentials and commercial by street name, which will, of course, also show the neighborhoods. And we have also posted the change of assessments by name and by street name, so that you can, if you want to see how your street or how your neighbor's assessment and compare to that, you can see that, and that's also posted on the website, and of course the neighborhood adjustment. Also, you can go to the same town's website, the GIS website. You can search a specific property and then change the map layer to sales, and you can see sales around your home, for example. And they are color coded. Green means within the last year, I think brown is 2 years, etc. But that'll give you a good sense of what's have sold. And many people know what homes have sold, near them. And that is a good source of information. And also, when you pull your property information or any property information, you can look at the property record card with the specific inventory of the property and the assessment for this year.
Okay. Okay, I'd just like to open it up to my board colleagues to ask Fernando any particular question that you may have been getting, because I know that everybody's getting questions. So this would be a good time for you to have just a chance to ask Fernando. And then as far as our Zoom audience at our meeting, we will have an opportunity at the end of the meeting, which is not very long, for visitor recognition, at which point, if you have questions you would like to ask, I think we'll probably take a few questions at the end as well. I don't know if we're going to be able to give answers, but we'll do our best.
One of the most common questions that I've been getting is what is, with the market going down. So I would just want to reiterate that it's my understanding that any fluctuations in the market due to this pandemic will be caught on our next regular appraisal or reassessment, which would be in July. So the tax rolls will be updated again this coming July 1st and will hopefully capture any changes that the market bears, correct?
That is correct. The valuation date for the roll is July 1st of the prior year. So for the 2020 roll, the valuation date is July 1st of 2019. So for the 2021 roll, it would be July 1st of 2020. So, whatever happens in the market between now and July 1st would be captured for the next roll, which, we are all concerned and, to see what's going to happen here. If we can get back to some sense of normalcy.
Councilman Feldman, do you have two audios going at the same time? Because you're very echoey. I don't know if you have a phone and a video audio going at the same time.
Nope, just a phone.
Okay. And also just to point out, I mean, Fernando, you mentioned that rates go, if values go down, rates go up. But also, if you're all taking the same portion of the pie, so shrink a little bit, but everybody's sort of taking that same portion. It doesn't necessarily mean your taxes are going to go up. So if you're paying
Correct.
a certain amount of taxes this year, and everybody's value goes down, sort of proportionately, your taxes aren't going to go up more. They're going to just sort of remain the same. Again, proportionately.
Proportionally.
Some neighborhoods may go down more than other neighborhoods based on some of the factors that you discussed earlier. But if everything were to just sort of crash at the same time, that's what it would look like. It wouldn't look like your taxes going sky high or coming way down just because your property value had decreased.
Yes, that is correct. So basically, as I say now, that the average increase is 5%, and anyone who saw a 5% or less increase in assessed value should not see an increase in taxes provided the budgets remain the same. The contrary of that is if everybody went down by 10%, then everybody kept the same share of the tax burden. However, if you only went down by 2%, then of course you may see a slight increase in taxes. So it's again, what taxes you pay are not only impacted by your assessment and budgets, but also other property assessments as well.
So
Sorry.
what you're saying is even if everybody's assessment went up 5%, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to have a bigger tax bill because it's the same. As long as it went up exactly proportionally, then it would be the the pie that they would be owed, and we are not changing our budget based on the assessments. We change our budget based on our needs and try very hard not to. So it's not that all of a sudden there's this much more money and the town gets more money. We're still asking for still have the same needs, not raising tax. It's just a portion different evaluation. Correct?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Councilwoman Shaw, did you have any questions?
Yeah. Fernando, can you just go over one more time if someone wants to grieve, what the process is, who they call, that kind of thing?
Okay. Of course, we want people to have avail themselves to an informal review with Tyler Technologies. The notices that were sent out included a checklist, which had a number where to call. Here, the number is 800-829-4235, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can also schedule an appointment through the internet by going to www.tylertech.com/schedule. All that information is on the package that we sent to the property owners with the preliminary change of assessment notice. It's called the Informal Review Guidelines, which explains what to do and what we're looking for. After the informal review, if you are not satisfied with the decision, which you will be notified prior to filing the tentative roll, which most likely will be June 30th, you will have the opportunity to file a grievance to seek administrative review by the Board of Assessment Review, and that will be by filing the RP 524 form, which you can get through our website or through the state website. And you must file the grievance. By July 21st, which, once the board approves the change for the tentative roll. Again, we encourage people to meet with Tyler and discuss their assessment and try that first.
Thank you.
Also as a reminder, if you can have your representative contact Tyler if you so desire. Of course, we would rather deal with the property owner, but if you have a representative, whether it's an attorney or not, we'll be happy to discuss it with your representative as long as they are authorized by you.
Do you need a representative?
No, you don't need a representative. No.
Would you do better with a representative?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
A representative is supposed to be an expert in real estate, so if he or she will understand what comparables are and the date range and how to make the proper adjustments.
Okay. Councilman Wiltshire.
Yes.
Did you have any questions for Fernando, or anybody ask any questions that you wanted to ask him?
No, I don't.
Okay, no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Meyer.
Yeah, my only concern is that even with the July date, I just worry that we still may not know exactly what the real estate market's looking like. But I think it's important for people at home to understand that that's kind of the end date of when we're able to push it back to. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, what the real estate market is looking like in the next few months is not a factor. That would be a factor for next year's roll. Of course, based on what is going on right now, we're making preparations as the governor authorized us to conduct the bar proceedings via Zoom or technology, not by people coming to town hall. So we would set up this whole process and announce it shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I was unmuted. Okay. So I think that Fernando, unless you had anything else you wanted to add, or I don't know if Steve ever came. I didn't see his name, but if you wanted to say anything about Tyler, the methodology, or anything like that, because I know a lot of people have questioned it and had some not such nice things to say about Tyler. If you wanted to say anything at all about the methodology, Steve, I would give you an opportunity to do that now before we continue on with the rest of our meeting.
Hello, Steve. Are you there?
I didn't see his name, but it could be a phone number.
We have one here, not sure.
Do we know? I don't know. Can you raise their hand virtually?
I'm unmuting whoever is dialing in, so if you could just say who you are, maybe. Nope.
Is that 845 number? I don't know.
I don't think so.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we don't have Steve. I don't know, Fernando, did you want to talk at all about anything about the methodology? I think you kind of hit most of it, but I don't know if you wanted
Yeah.
to talk about their computer models or anything like that. I mean, again, I think you talked about the general information. You don't have to go back over anything you've already stated.
No, basically, this is a process that is considered best practices. And before we went ahead and made these changes and sent out the notices, all this data on sales and values are sent to the state of New York, which oversees this process, and they run their own processes and models to determine whether our values meet the threshold in order to certify the 100% full market value for the town of Ossining. And that is part of the process that is required. So again, this is considered best practices. And as you know, many people talk about Tyler, but the reality is that they are the leading company that does this kind of work, not only in the state of New York, but in the United States and Canada as well.
And then it also does go to ORPS to get
Yes.
a blessing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole file,
Right.
every property record, sales, and everything we did is verified by the state in New York in order to give us the certification of 100%. And also, let me point out that this staff, the majority of the staff that has worked on this project, is also worked with us during the last 5 years, 6 years. Steve Besio, who's supposed to be on the call with us, has been working with us every year. Salim Serda, the project director, has been working with us also the last 5 years. And many of the data collectors, appraisers, and reviewers also have a lot of experience in Ossining and are very knowledgeable of the real estate market in Ossining.
Okay. Great. Well, I thank you for that. And I think that is it for our departmental report for